stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our meeting this evening. First up is the appointments. We don't have any appointments tonight. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes. I'd take a motion to accept the minutes so we can move forward with those.
Move to accept the minutes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Next on the agenda is a joint meeting with the Financial Planning Update Report. Ladies.
All right, well, we distributed the draft we had developed last time, 2 weeks ago, I should say, and I hope you had a chance to peruse it. And we're looking for feedback to see if we're on the right track and providing the information you need to do your job. Any comments?
I don't have it in front of me, but I did review it, and I must say, it seems like you folks got together and you have got your heads on, and you got a plan to go forward, and I like the idea of tracking everything in there. So, yeah, thanks. I'm gonna get some. So, I mean, it's the best one I've seen since I've been here. Even when I was on the finance committee, this is very good. So, I mean, you got the recommendations, you got what you're trying to do in the end. So I think this will put us fiscally down the right path. So
It's going to take a while.
Yeah. But you got to
We're
start.
hoping to have some revenue and expense projections available by the end of September, early October, so that we, for fiscal year 16 budget process, we will have the whole plan completed at that point, I'm sure. But we have enough information to start working on it in 2016.
Okay. So what would be the next step for us moving forward?
I guess what we were looking for you was to see that we can do what we said or not, because we'll move ahead with it as based on your input and your support and your ability to help us enforce.
Yeah, we talked about a few things, like making sure that the budgetary season is sort of, when we crack open the budget process in January, that we're looking at these expectations from the department heads for their budget requests, and have it more sort of, not rigid, but organized. Thank you very
And
much.
it's not going to be January, it's going to be October.
October.
By the
And
state.
probably late September, early October, we want to sit down with you with some projections, and at that point, you need to determine the guidelines for the department heads.
Okay, all right. That sounds fair. Because every year it's sort of like hit or miss, and we're trying to sort of do things. And do you want to meet with somebody next? I mean, that's how the process is.
It's going to be organized.
All right,
It's been very amorphous, and I think if we put some structure, not just the structure, because we've tried to do that needs somehow to be enforced, and that's why we're saying to you folks, if we put this plan together, we can only come to you as a recommendation. We're not in positions that you're in positions to make sure that these things happen.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hurting cats, because even though we know what we'd like to do at a certain time, some of the people are elected officials, and they just sort of do whatever they want to do anyways. But it sounds like a step in the right direction at this time.
Okay, well then we will proceed.
Yes.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry,
excuse me.
Jackie.
I'd like to address number 7K, change town treasurer, collector, and town clerk positions to appointed rather than elected. I thought that we decided that at the town meeting.
It was voted down.
It was
Yes,
tabled.
It was declined. It was
Tabled.
tabled.
Right.
It was tabled. So it was rejected.
So-
I think it should be revisited.
So, yeah, historically, let's just go back to that one article, is that, again, the Department of Revenue came into town in 2005, and the report was that those two positions should be appointed. Appointed positions means that there's some accountability.
Did they give us any documents? I didn't read that anywhere.
Well, it's in the office if you want to read that. It's in the office if you want to read the DOR report. It's there. There's a few things that...
It was tabled.
No, it was tabled, but I'm just trying to get the historical where it came from. So it came from the state, the DOR, and then 05, 06, we presented it to the town, and at that time it was shot down. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't revisit that option.
No.
And so it was revisited this past annual, and it was tabled. Because I think people maybe are more inclined maybe to pass it, but they wanted some more information regarding it. And it's not to take the votes away from the people, because people do vote for the town clerk, and people do for the tax collector, but it's making sure you get somebody in that office that is of the right quality and ability to do the job. Since I've been on the board, there has been a tax collector in that office, in an elected position, who refused to go after $400,000 in back taxes. $400,000 in back taxes. It took Selectman Batchelder and Selectman Crevier to force the issue to get that money in back taxes. There's no accountability to that if somebody's elected. I choose not to do that. I'm an elected official. Whereas it's an appointed position, there's some accountability. And that's why I think it's a good thing to move forward with that.
And these are recommendations. This will probably be among our recommendations, which is, simply something for the select board to decide on.
And I think at the town meeting, the reason it was tabled, and I forget the woman's name, she felt the job description clearly indicated the responsibilities. And I think we all agreed that, yeah, we should have something more of substance that can go before the town so they know what we're doing. But Eileen retired recently. Fortunately, we had some good candidates on there. But what Dave is talking about, at the time that our treasurer retired a couple of treasurers ago, the two people running for that office were an unemployed painter and a person who had 6 months' experience in the clerical side. And you went on from there and saying we had some issues. So fortunately, we have good people in these positions now. But
I mean, Donna Whiteley now comes in there with 20 years experience or something like that, as treasurer, tax collector for the town of Chesterfield. So she has experience in that position. But elections are a popularity contest. And so anyone can get elected to that position, and that's a key position. And when we're trying to get out of this financial hole, that anybody can get in there based on popularity, it's not the best interest of the town.
we could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars that way.
Yes. Eileen?
Chairman,
Yes, Eileen?
all these boards are elected, and none of you have the experience when you come on the select board. So what difference is it if the town clerk is not
Can I
ready
answer
to
that?
take over? None of
We,
you selectmen were ready.
well, I don't know. I'm not going to debate that part. I mean, I've got like
No, but I'm just making a point.
30 years
No,
of
Eileen,
business
I agree.
We're talking
experience.
about
But you know,
treasurer cluster.
the
Same
real,
goes for you.
sorry, I didn't mean to run over. The real difference is that the select board right here depends on the clerk, depends on the treasurer, depends on the town administrator. We depend on those people having experience because we don't have that experience. We go to them. They're the people getting paid. So, I mean, it's critical. If we go to a town clerk, that person has no experience and we don't have the experience, the town loses.
And Eileen, on to that note, I would say as a selectman since 2004, I took 1 year off. It takes probably 6 months, a year and a half to really understand what it means to be a selectman. And all I bring to the table is, I hope, is common sense. And for my heart is what's best interest for the town. I don't know how, I don't have to know banking, I don't know how to know accounting, I don't know how to know software that's critical for submitting bills to the state. I don't have to know that material. Or how to run an office in the sense of an accounting and accounts receivable for a town. Those are specific skills that I don't know how to do, and I will say that clearly. Now, do I know more about municipal budgeting? Yes. Did it take 2 years to understand? Yes. Am I still learning? Of course. Well, in the get-go, at that moment that you have a tax collector, you want somebody that knows the job. Because you don't want to miss out. You don't want to miss thousands of dollars. You don't want to miss any of that. And that's why we argue for that. That should be an appointed position that should look at a certain skill set, certain training that sort of is vetted by a committee. We've done several hiring committees in town. It does involve lay people, but you want somebody in that position that knows how to do that job.
And I guess, and people are going to disagree with this, but some of them, we're a $15 million business. We spend $15 million, And if you're a $15 million business out there, say a manufacturing plant, and your treasurer retires, you don't go out to the floor of the manufacturing plant and say, can I have some volunteers to run for treasurer? You go out there and get the best person you can to run that company efficiently as possible. And that's what we would be able to do that way.
Well, I think what we could do, what we could change, is ask the people that are running to give us their credentials and put that on our website and let people know and let them see who would be a viable candidate and then let them vote on it, just like a committee would, that we all have to. I've been on the committees and we rate them. And I have confidence, wait a minute, let me just finish. I have confidence in this town. They're smart enough to look to see the candidates and what they're capable of doing and let them vote on it. I don't feel comfortable taking away their right to vote.
But I think that just a step further, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it that way, except that you need a group of people who are going to vet those candidates and make sure that what they're telling you, their qualifications, are real and true, and that they meet the requirements of the job, but not just because they submitted it and put it online, but because they've actually been vetted by some type of a committee.
That's a good idea.
What we've been doing to what we want to do, so that you get qualified candidates, and ultimately then, you know.
But the only person that can run for that position is somebody that lives in town. What if the most qualified person lives in Easthampton? They can't run for that position.
You could have
So you're only
5.
recruiting from Southampton.
You
So
could
you're
have,
not
Well,
recruiting.
there's a lot of sharp people here, and I'm
I'm
sure
not
we can
denying
find
that, but
candidates.
the right person could not be somebody that lives in this town. That would be the right person for that job. And you want the right person for the job. We can disagree on this.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't feel comfortable taking away that right from people here.
I think maybe it's conversations for another night.
Yeah.
We have a crew here. I don't know if we're giving away stuff tonight or not, but the place is full.
Any other issues regarding this?
I think you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, ladies. Have a good night.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry. I got mine at home. There you go. I got one. Thank you.
Is Jeff Swanson here tonight?
I am.
Where are you? How you doing?
Big massive crowd.
Yeah, I don't know why they're here. So you had some concerns about the Labrie Field and grass update and oversight. Is that correct? And what are your questions?
Mainly that it's kind of going full cycle. We originally started in 2009 with the Recreational Needs Committee, which I chaired at that time. Diane had asked us to be a liaison to SYA with the deeds on the town, which then brought us to the Labrie Field Committee, which then began the process of taking the bids to build the fields that are there today. But now we're at that was 09 to 10 to 11, and now we're watching the grass grow. So, and it's, I don't know whose fault, but it seems like in my eyes, we kind of just, we're watching the grass grow. So I came to Heather and said, okay, let me introduce myself. So I got a notice about starting the Recreational Needs Committee again, and being sworn in as the only member right now on that committee. So, but before I make another committee to make a committee, we've had layers already involved. I called Mark this afternoon, as a matter of fact.
Mark is there? Who's Mark?
Gave him the heads up from the Park Commission standpoint too, because they're also going to be involved in the park at Labrie. So, and then with Ed Colley, not being effective, having stepped down from the Highway Department, I think he was the original contact person with the contractors doing the work out in the field. So, haven't spoken to Ed, so I'm not sure what it is if this committee's aware of where we are with it. Talking with Randall, I know the plan is to oversee it again in the fall. That's another year of watching the grass grow. So
Yeah, from talking to Ed, it was a concern about making sure what was there got enough root system in place so that when you started using it, it just didn't get torn up. And I thought he said something about the spring this year would be the time to start. So spring baseball sounds like would be the start. We can talk to Ed. I mean, we are unable to talk to him tonight, but because he oversaw the whole project, and before he worked for the Highway Department, he did develop parks. So we had this understanding of letting the grass get deep enough into the soil, so we didn't have to do repair right away. So as soon as we can get in touch with Ed, we'll, figure out when we can start using the fields. Is there fall soccer that kicks off at some point?
It will be, we'll do the signs, well, we'll take the signs now.
When does that start?
Right after, kids get back to school, so they'll start September.
Is Randall, I have only been over there a couple times in the past 9 months, is Randall maintaining the fields by cutting the lawn?
They're, I believe it, I think they've turned it over to Randall's cutting now.
Okay. Are the soccer fields, are the nets there? Are the equipment there?
We could supply nets from an SOA standpoint,
Okay.
for the recreational program. Right now, we're not planning on using those because, again, we were told that the grass needs to grow. So.
Have you walked the fields at all recently?
Just a baseball field,
Okay.
mainly, and certainly there is the infield's already being overgrown, and with it not being maintained, it's just gonna turn into a.
Okay. So would you be willing to make an appointment to sit with Ed, and we could walk the fields together and get a sense of the fields? And so you're saying October is when the fall starts?
But we're good to go without this. We've already made decisions.
Okay. So when do you actually need to use the fields then?
Well, baseball will start again in the fall, the spring.
That's right.
We do a fall baseball, we're going out of town again for that.
Okay. So when you really need the field would be starting sometime in May or so, or April, May-ish? Okay. So why don't we set up a time where we could walk the fields with Ed, because he knows the fields, he's been working on that before he retired, with Randall, and I wouldn't mind walking that as well, maybe with Heather, and we'll come up with an idea of when we can start using the fields and how to keep the maintenance up. Obviously Randall will have to be as well. One of the concerns I have is in dealing with Kona Park in the past, the SYA, was sort of scheduling the fields, who played where and what. Is that the intention of SYA to actually manage the schedule for the Lee Field as well?
I think that's where the Park Commission, and Mark can help with this, I think that's where part of the other dilemma is,
Yeah.
is that, who's gonna manage the process for, because we actually, not SYA, we asked permission to use the park at Conan for our program. So we would be another provider of services in the town, hopefully having the first right to the fields.
So do we need like a central spot to sort of coordinate that? Mark?
I guess, Mark Reed, Chairman of the Parks Commission. One thing that needs to be resolved is who's going to maintain and who's going to manage Labrie Field. Is it going to be under the jurisdiction of the Park Commission or another entity in town? That's one big question that hasn't been resolved, because currently, and I've had quite a few conversations with Randall about this, currently we don't have monies in our budget to mow the grass. So,
Money in your budget or money in the town budget?
no, in our budget, the Park Commission's budget.
Do you know what the costs are for mowing the lawns,
That's an unknown, because Randall just started mowing the fields. I think he's done it probably 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
He started mowing the field, so he's trying to get a handle on what the expense is going to be to that goal. The Park Commission has also had requests from outside entities to use the field and to pay the town for the use of the fields.
So it sounds like we should get together and figure out usage fees, maintenance for the park. Do you want to schedule a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, with the Park Commission, and work through some of this and get some
I
guidance?
think so, and I think
Yes,
SYA needs to be there.
Yeah, you'll know your schedule for like 2015. This is the SYA schedule. We need it for baseball, we need it for, whatever, other soccer, whatever, and we can work with the Park Commission to come up with a general schedule, and then know what open days that you have, and then come up with a maintenance schedule that we can work with Randall, and then overall cost for, and then a user fee. So if they want to have a family event, like a softball game or something at the park, we can work out what that is, a whole harmless agreement, and a few other things that we do for Kona Park as well.
Right. Currently we have a group that wants to rent the field every Sunday. It's an over 30 baseball league team that wants to use it every Sunday and pay the town to use it. We also have a soccer group that wants to use it this fall, but from talking with Randall, it may be premature to use it this fall because of Ed's concerns about damage to the field, using in the field before it's completely established. I know that the town I think just recently settled with the contractor for work that hadn't been completed to the satisfaction of the town or to Ed. And so that's why that delay, I think, is occurred this year. But we need to have a joint meeting to figure out, you know, that aspect of it.
Why don't we set that on the schedule sometime next couple of weeks?
So my question on that too is, we've got this other committee, the Recreation on East Committee. Do we want to re-spark that? What would be our mission?
So you're on SYA, but you're also on the Recreation Needs Committee.
Yeah, to me, it was pretty well dissolved for a couple of years, so now it's.
I think, you know, from my opinion, I think always having that sort of in the background would be appropriate, because I don't know where the bike trail is at this point, but it seems as if that, as that moves forward, that you would want to have some sort of central place where does the bike trail connect to? What trails do they connect to? Does it just go to the reserve there on East Street? Would you connect trails over to the two parks? How would you connect the two parks? What else would you do with the park that's on Helen Drive? How would you connect on those parks?
Sure.
This is a right-of-way at the end of Helen Drive that goes down to the rail trail. And I think recreational needs would be critical for that, to sort of coordinate that between all the various parks, Park Commission and the rail trail. I don't know where the bike path is right now, in a sense. I don't know where Mike is at that. I don't know if it's stalled, waiting for the railroad to come back. But.
They were waiting in negotiations last time.
Okay.
They're still negotiating with DOT,
Okay.
Mass DOT for the extra rails.
Okay. So that's still moving forward, but it'd be nice to have one committee to sort of put it all together, to have a necklace of parks within the Southampton that you could easily take children from park to park to enjoy different areas of Southampton.
So that we also have a vacancy on the Park Commission. You probably don't want to have another committee to go to, but I think it would be behoove us to have at least one member of SYA on our commission. Because I did receive an email for use of the field for soccer at Conant Park, a request that we typically get every year from Vicki and from Eileen. Okay, thank you. So that, you know, typically that is granted every year, and it will be again this year for use of it. We just haven't responded yet. But there is a position open, and it would have to be appointed by the SelectBoard.
Do you want to, Jeff, how do you feel about that?
I think that would be fine to step in and hold off a little bit. Well, have the Recreation Needs Committee rebuild itself. In the meantime.
How do you like being on the Park Commission?
Sure, love to.
So we would have to set up a joint meeting, like we did last time, of the Park Commission and the SelectBoard to discuss his appointment, and then both boards have to vote to accept him.
It just seems like the more you guys talk together and integrate together, the better it'll be to achieve things that we want to achieve.
Oh, yeah,
We all have the same goals.
I agree. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mark, can you just give me a call when you talk to the rest of your group, and we'll put it in the book?
Okay. We are meeting on the 20th,
John, do you have any questions?
so you're more than welcome, or any of the members of SYA.
That's when SYA.
His income.
Yeah, that's the cost for rental. That's the cost for the rental.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're 6:30 at the plate, weather permitting.
6:30? How long does it go? So we probably want to do, because I think everyone's here.
All right. All right, just, I know there's a few people here that I've never seen here before, and so we're gonna just hold off on open time for the public. There's a couple of things we want to get through quickly, and we'll get to open time in the public, okay, for the public. Next is the emergency management position, Don Snyder. Don, you here?
Yes.
Don? Is John Arici here? Police Officer John Arici. Is the auxiliary officer, is he here? Does he need, okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, I would take a motion to appoint auxiliary officer John Arici to the police office.
I move to appoint Don Ritchie, auxiliary officer.
A second?
It's been cleared.
It's been cleared.
It's separate from the PCF.
Separate from that, this is the
Volunteer.
auxiliary officer
Yeah.
we're talking about? Okay, I'll second it.
All right, those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that's done. Who was I looking for? Chief?
Yes.
And Don,
Don, I don't see you, man. Where are you? I hear voices.
There you go.
Hi. So I'd take a motion to appoint Don Snyder as the emergency management position and Chief Workman as the assistant emergency management position.
Okay, I move to appoint Don Snyder as the emergency management director. And his assistant, John Workman.
Do I have a
Chief
second?
Workman, pardon me.
Second, but I've got a question, so.
Yeah.
Is this something you folks have talked about and feel okay with?
It's a non-paid position. I think we both just want to help the town, so we both have plenty of qualifications, so the
Right.
person you put first or second, I don't think it matters. So, I mean, I'm comfortable with that.
I know there was.
I've already written a grant.
Okay.
Just for the thing.
I heard you guys were always sort of talking and working things out and working as a team.
Yes.
Good. All right.
You feel comfortable with that, Chief?
Yeah, that's fine.
I look towards you to,
Yeah. I have no problem with that. Don's got
okay.
a lot of experience in it, and it's just good that we stay.
You guys feel you can work together, I'm fine with it.
All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Payroll warrant 15-07. Do we have an amount?
One.
I do not.
Payroll warrants in the amount of $33,007.68. Do I have a motion?
Move to sign the payroll warrant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that passes. Bill warrant, 15-06, $1,130,692.72. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
So next up is ECAT. We have Kathy. So Kathy, we have an evaluation for ECAT.
This one or the one over?
Have you looked at this? Have you seen this?
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to go through this quickly, or?
Sure.
All right, so number one, first evaluation. Operate public education of government access cable channel. Have you met expectations or not met expectations? Good word. Met.
Definitely met.
Okay. Operating community access center. Met expectations or not met expectations?
We operate a community access center
So met. Provide access.
to anybody who asks for it.
Training. Train town residents when requested, town and school employees in the techniques of video production. Provide technical advice and execution of productions. Have they met or not met expectations?
Have you done any training or been requested to do any training?
We were requested from one Southampton citizen, and we provided her with production support. Her name is Nicole Goldstein, and she did the Greenway project. We've also engaged with a number of town hall staff to produce a series of about town hall videos.
So have you not granted their request? So there's nobody that has asked for your help that you haven't given it to?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so met. All right, B, playback and cable cast, provide for playback and cable casting of programs of the PEG access channels and cable cast of an average of at least 60 hours of local, original, and replayed and outside programming per week. Have you met that or not met that?
We have met that requirement. 60 hours is approximately 8 hours a day,
Okay.
and we've exceeded that. I sent some random sampling reports to the town administrator's office to corroborate.
C, promotion, actively promote the use and benefit of PEG access channels and facilities to cable subscribers and the public, PEG access users, and the cable operators currently charter communication, which I think is going to change, right?
Well, it most likely will change, and this community will most likely become a Comcast community, but there's a number of factors that will play into that. One is the FCC would have to okay the merger, And the deadlines they're still soliciting comments from the public on that right now, and the deadline is August 25th. So we probably won't know until about December if the merger's going to go through, and then once it goes through, I just attended a license transfer hearing today, so the gist of that meeting was that even when it goes through, possibly mid-June next year, 2015, Charter, now Comcast customers are going to be slowly integrated into the Comcast system, so it's not like one day they'll just switch over.
Now, for promotion, what have you, I'm sorry, John, what have you done for promotion?
So to promote, in terms of outreach, we've contacted a number of agencies, and actually the Southampton coordinator, Paul, could speak in more detail about it, but I know that we had a number of programs going on with the library, and there's some outreach that's been done with the Historical Society. Is that correct, Paul?
I have contacted the Historical Society, but haven't yet actually said anything to Phil.
So we could probably do better on that. We could do a little better.
Well, I think we can do more. I mean, but we've done a number of things with the Edwards Library. Once the town wanted to move forward and let people know what was happening at Town Hall, we were all over it and provided as much assistance as was humanly possible so that the citizens could be informed. And we also did something with Robert Floyd Photo. But since mid-February when we took on the contract, that's what we've done to date thus far.
So there could be some room for improvement along those lines, you think?
I think that it will, I guess I wouldn't frame it as improvement, I would frame it as there will be more volume in the future should you continue to contract with us.
All right, and then in section 2, ECAT may develop and enforce policies and procedures which are designed to promote local use of channels and make programming accessible to the viewing public, consistent with such time, manner, and place and regulations that are appropriate to provide for and to promote use of PEG access channels, equipment, and facilities. I would assume you've met those expectations.
I would assume too, and the corroboration I would offer is that the recording of government meetings, they're immediately scheduled for broadcast. They're also immediately posted to the web, or I shouldn't say immediately, but within a day are posted to the web site, the blog site that we set up for the town of Southampton that's referenced on your homepage. So basically, people have access to government. Whatever government that we've recorded, people have access to almost immediately.
Okay. And the last point was ECAT shall maintain all necessary books and records in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. I mean, it's part of the contract. I would assume that you were doing that.
Yes, and it's also part of our contract with Easthampton. Our audits are all kept on file at Richard Abbott in Easthampton.
Okay. Any questions for us?
No, I would just ask the select board to think about where they would like to go with our relationship, because I think that now is a great time to start thinking about that, because you do have a license transfer that's coming up, and you can decide how committed you want to be to PEG access, and then what you're going to ask for in your cable contract that's also coming up for negotiation in 2016. So it's a really important and relevant way to solicit a corporate give back. That's the only utility that's mandated to give back to the community, and I think that we've demonstrated fairly successfully ways in which public access can work in this community. So I'd like to sort of look at that, look at the budgeting constraints, and figure out how we can develop more programming. And when I say programming, I don't just mean television shows, but programs that will benefit the residents of Southampton and the students of Southampton. So I'd like to keep that dialogue open.
I was just going to say, I think we should also say that, Paul's at least exceeded my expectations, done a great job, so thank you for that.
Paul's great, and he's such an asset to the corporation. We're really happy with Paul. I hope you guys are too. But if you're not, I want to hear about it.
Do you have any questions?
I was just wondering how we can get feedback from the viewers to see if they like the programming that we, it's great. So you turn on, you never know what's going to come on. There's a lot.
You never know what's going to come on, but I will say you can check in with what's going on. If you go to our website, we have a programming link, and Southampton is in that. You just click on the Southampton channel. There's a day calendar that pops up, and any day of the week you can see what played in the past. You can see what's played that's already programmed into schedule in the future.
Can you say your website right now?
It's www.ecat, that's Echo Charlie Apple Thomas, channel5.org. And so where I would like to go with our relationship is I would like to see if the select board and the municipality feels like we're acceptable, I'd like to explore really integrating our organizations so that we don't each singly need to reinvent the wheel. That means incorporating the town into our website. It means incorporating you know, we don't need a separate posting for government meetings if we can post them all here. And there's a Southampton click, and you click on Southampton, and you can see the array of government meetings that are available. So anything's, you know, including that, like high school programming, projects that we engage in the school. I'd sort of like to see us all under the same umbrella for our long-term planning, but that's, again, something that we would need to dialogue about and come up with.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, so one last thing before open time for the public. Where'd you go? We talked about weight and measures services. We had been with Northampton, but we found out if we went with the state, we would save money and make money. So Heather has the details for that. So I think we're looking at possibly going to the state for weight and measures services instead of Northampton. State versus Northampton.
Huh?
State versus Northampton. Court case.
We're talking about weights and measures.
Yeah.
They had voted, or the board rather had voted several weeks ago, getting into months of this point, to proceed with pursuing the services that the state offers as opposed to Northampton. At the time, years past, what had happened, Northampton had always provided someone to do the weights and measures services for the town. However, this year was the first year they were going to actually institute charging us for it. When we had looked into other alternative options, one of the things we did was to actually call the state, because the options were that if we didn't go with Northampton, the default was the state. So we called the state. It turns out that the state was actually going to charge us less money than Northampton. I called Northampton, tried to work out a couple things. The woman I talked to wasn't interested in doing that. The fees they had were already much higher. They wouldn't allow us any wiggle room to actually get any funds back. They were collecting all the fees anyway at the time, and we'd have to pay up front at the beginning of the year $2,000. When we talked to the state doesn't require us to pay till after they've completed all the inspections. Our inspection fees can actually be higher and still be lower than what Northampton wanted them to be. We collect the fees, we actually make a profit on it, and everyone's happy. We don't have to pay until after the inspections are done and the state does the work.
So we already voted for this.
We did already vote for it, but we just received the contract
You have to sign the contract.
about 3 days ago, as soon as I put my fingertips on it.
Well, Heather's looking for that. There's a one-day liquor license for Harley Davidson for August 20th. From 5 to 10, they're having a bike night there. Opus serving beer. Steve McGurr is the bartender. There's a hold harmless agreement. From what I understand, there was no feedback from the police regarding any issues from the last time. I'm looking for a motion to approve the one-day liquor license for Harley Davidson. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the one-day liquor license for Harley Davidson.
Do I have a second? Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Did you find what you were looking for, kid?
Yeah, it's actually behind the cabinet in the Board of Selectmen's office. It's the sheet of paper I lost right before I came.
All right.
So I will grab it in between.
So we've already voted for that, we just have to sign it, so
We
it's
just
no
have
big
to
deal.
sign it.
All right. I think that back. All right, is there any other issues from you, from,
The only thing I would have to report on my end, if we're just skipping to me before we go to open time for public, is had a department head meeting last week. We checked in with all of the different budgets. Everyone seems to be doing okay. As you know, we talked about before, the highway department's furloughed on Fridays, so nothing's happening on Fridays for the 4 hours.
what happens if there's an emergency? They would get paid overtime to come back out?
Yeah.
Okay.
But in the meantime, the idea is that we save about $13,000 between now and November. We ultimately have to cut about $30,000 in the budget line there, but the hope is that, you never know, but we're hoping for an easier winter. We don't know if that's gonna happen or not, but that's the goal. If not, we'll have to see what we're gonna do in the spring to kind of recover the rest of the cost, but for right now, this is the most proactive approach we can take. We had to decide between doing layoffs or furloughs. We sat down with the union and we did out the math, and because Southampton is one of the communities where we actually are responsible for 50% of the unemployment pay, We have to lay off 2 people to equal the actual recovery pay of 1 person. So it would require us to lay off at least 2 people, or in this case, what we tried to do instead was we tried to go with furloughs. It saves the most jobs, keeps the morale up the best we can, and it keeps all the workers. So we don't have to worry about, laying people off. By the time you want to get them back, they've already found other jobs, they're elsewhere, what have you. The other benefit is it's on a Friday, so theoretically, if they wanted to, it's the most advantageous for them because that frees up Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So if they have to, if they're in a situation where maybe money is tight, at least they have the opportunity to have 3 days in a row to engage in something, if they need to do so. Other departments, there's furloughs once a month in certain departments just because that was where the cuts were. Other cuts were in expense lines because that's where they decided them to be. We're doing cuts in the department or in the town hall itself, saving money here and there. We're not doing paper towels anymore, so that saves $60 a month, $720 a year. Simple, small things that seem ridiculous, but we have hand dryers in most of the rest of the bathrooms, including already the senior center. We already have a hand dryer now, we're just not doing double. So we're working on it. I think that's mostly the biggest update. Purchase orders we're doing well on. For the most part, I think we've already had about 8. Most of the departments are having no problems with them. They take about a minute and a half for them to fill out, and they take about 2 minutes for me to complete and a minute and a half to get it back to them. So we're not holding the process there. We figured out that little snag that was happening upstairs in finance, so that is now resolved. Everything else seems to be moving forward. The CIC grant, Community Innovation Challenge grant, just opened up at the state, so we'll be attending the meeting they have for information on that in a couple weeks. Also, PVPC has information on that. That requires working with another community to get it. It's not one you can obtain on your own, so we'll see what we can come up with.
We used that before. I think it sounded like Ludlow or something like that. We used one before. All right.
I'd have to look at the file.
Quick question on the purchase order system.
Yep.
Is everybody in compliance? Did you get all the bugs worked out, or you're still working them out with some?
Still working.
Anything we can do, obviously, let us know.
Anything else on that?
That's all I can think of for the time being. We're going through files now, so as we come across that stuff is coming out.
Very good. Very good. Open time for the public.
We have somebody on the agenda?
Yes, he's right there.
Mr. Boyle?
He's behind.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jim Boyle, live at 96 Gun Road. 2 weeks ago, I was here at the meeting. That's why you're probably seeing a group of people here concerned about this issue with the Hoyle Building Department. But anyway, at that meeting that night, the city treasurer came in here, sat over there, and handed out some proposals similar to what I got that were dated the day before the meeting. But anyway, we gave this a little overview of the plan. Within half an hour or so, it appeared that everybody was afraid nobody was going to be able to do these inspections or do anything. So we voted to hire these people, the big Hoyle Building Department, the wiring division, and the plumbing. That eliminated two people here that are here tonight to probably speak to you a little bit about the plumbing and wiring part of it. But anyway, there was 2 proposals. One was not to have the wiring and plumbing in that contract. So, needless to say, you went the whole route, you took the whole route, so let the Hoyle City take care of it. Well, anyway, I'm not sure that when they left that night, they said they were going to run to the, and you were all concerned, when can you start? Well, anyway, they said we got to go to Hoyle City Council next Tuesday, which was a few days after. So that didn't go on to the agenda, it got buried into a committee. So when that comes out of the committee, City Council will act or not act or whatever they do. So possibly they could be on board or not on board, nobody knows yet. The hard part of this that I have with it is nobody knew anything about the discussion that was to take place that night. I happened to run into it, I looked at the agenda, I says it's worth looking at, it came that night. Nobody else was here. No planning department, no ZBA, no Board of Health. Nobody knew what you guys were doing and people were doing. In my opinion, at least a few people should be been notified of the boards. These people on these boards rely on the inspector to, the inspector's like a hub of all these people. They ask the building inspector this, they ask them that, everybody asks them. Heather asked them, everybody's asked them. Well, needless to say, your man retired, and here we are. But I'm not sure that it was really looked at for any length of time. The Holyoke City Council has a committee reviewing it. This vote went through, boom, just like that. Half an hour, it was over. The building departments in Massachusetts are covered by other inspectors all over the place. If your inspector's not here, somebody will cover the base for you. Paul Healy's doing a great job now, but even if he said, I'm not going to do it tomorrow, some other town would carry the ball, and if they don't, the state will. So that's really where that goes. So the hurry part of that vote wasn't necessary. And believe me, by looking at these people here tonight, nobody's looking forward to having any other community do the building department in this town, believe me. It's not, especially a city. You're offering them $94,000 to cover this. Now, I don't know where that money's coming from, but it's not, it wasn't budgeted by the town meeting. They got $57,000 earmarked for that job. Right now, you're gonna do it for 94. So how you get the rest of the money, I guess the town does have their ways. But I think that this proposal that Holyoke gave you is not regionalization. It's a contract for services. That's what they're giving you. Now, I don't know if that has to be competitive bidding, I don't know. But that could have been offered to the town of Easthampton, other communities. Easthampton would have been a beautiful match because they're right there. So I'm not sure where to go. I didn't hear any time that night that the Copeland and Page gave any insight into this proposal.
Did you just let them know who you just mentioned, who they are?
What's that?
Who did you just mention?
Copeland and Page.
Does everybody else know who that is?
Well, that's a town attorney.
So we know who that is.
Yeah, that is the town attorney. That night, usually when things go on like that, everybody's yelling, the town attorney looked at it, everything's good, everything's good. I didn't hear that night. So I'm just assuming that they didn't look at that proposal that you got. I don't know what the contract states in it. There was overtime pieces in that contract, but the regionalization part is not there. If you look all over the place, they have manuals for regionalization. This looks like one of the first I've seen come into this. So whether Heather has other towns or cities that have done this in the past, maybe she should bring them forward to you. But anyway, after that all took place, of course, even the town wire inspector, plumbing inspector, nobody was notified of that decision to do that night. I don't even know if they did it to this day. So I assume they're fired. So that's where that goes. But the next thing is you had a young guy in here, I watched it on TV, I don't know the man. You gave him, appeared to have voted his job in. I don't know what happened to it. But anyway, that guy there looked like a happy camper that night that he got that job. Potentially $50,000 a year in 6 months. Sounded pretty good for him. Young man with a small family. I guess that the thing I'm looking at here is, what was it, somebody made a comment that night I was here that he didn't have the credentials to do the job, but he did have them because if you don't have the credentials, you can't take that test. It's no different than the doctor, the lawyer, or the candlestick maker. They all have to, or the electrician or the plumber, they all have to service hours, they have to have schooling, they've got to have the whole thing. Then they can go take the test and do their trade or profession or whatever they're going to do. I just think that was the wrong thing to do. You got a lot of people here. I think we deserve either a a public hearing or at least some good private time on a night where everybody can get a good share of time and discuss their positions. I'm asking the board to do that. I asked Heather to be on the agenda. At best, I'm going to talk time, which I got one to talk about tonight. I appreciate that. I guess the thing I'm asking the board is to give us the right, and all these tradespeople work hard and bring a lot of money to the town, a lot of cash. Everybody's asking, how many houses are going to be built? How many houses are going to be built? That's going to generate what you're making money for the following year to pay the bills. So that's why I'm here tonight, and a lot of other people are here. We want to know if we can work under the government of this town. We all do a lot of business, electricians, plumbers, builders, remodelers, the whole thing. This is a difficult thing to swallow. We have to go and be a part. I mean, I'm not saying anything wrong with oil, but we should be under the roof of a town. If it's not this one, it should be some other small towns that we host, and it would be better. The budget for their department under the personnel part of it, I'm not talking about the demolition that's $200,000. Their budget's $200,000 for their department. We're offering them $94,000. That don't even make sense. Heather says we're going to make $10,000. She doesn't know. She doesn't know. She doesn't know how the fee inspector's working. I think the plumbing and water inspectors are both here tonight. I hope it can take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to hear them. I guess that's all I have to say. I covered whatever I think is done, and I hope that we can have some type of meeting. Now, really, that should be voted on tonight, so at least we all know if you will do that. So,
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I appreciate it. As far as I know, we haven't signed a contract with Holyoke. So we're looking at moving forward with discussion with Holyoke. We put up an agenda when we have meetings. So the agenda is known to the public. And it's hard to see in the future who's going to be upset with what we do at a meeting. So for us to predict that is impossible. It's impossible for us to say, oh geez, we should invite these people or those people. It's impossible for us to do. So I just want to address Mr. Moore first. So Jim, I just want to go back to some of the things you said. So, it's not a signed contract. It is in negotiation to sort of look at the possibilities of what Holyoke has to offer. And I think our job up here is to look at all case scenarios. As everyone knows, Prop 2.5 didn't pass. And there's severe budgetary constraints happening to this town as we speak. So our job is to look at how do we make this town make it through the next 9 months. Next year's budget's going to be worse than this past year's budget. So we're looking at all possibilities of how to save a dime for the town. Again, it's a process from dealing with Holyoke. It's not a signed contract. As for what the town brings in for development, I know the audience that I'm speaking to, but I also know that we've looked at the numbers for $1 in taxes that the town receives for a new home. It's $1.19 in services. So there are certain aspects of this town that are saying that development is not what they want to see. Just to respond to that one point, that it actually, what you have to pay in services for the new homes, the children, the schools, and all the other services, is more than you're going to get in taxes.
true, but
I'm just addressing that one point, Jim. And I get your concern. I'm not trying to, whatever, everything else that you said I think is legitimate, but I just need to address that one point. So, but our job is to do what's best for the town, and right now, it's about saving as much money as possible moving forward. Would it be nice to have an open time that everybody can speak to each other regarding possibilities of different aspects for a building inspector? Yes, that'd be nice to do. But from what I understand in discussing with Heather and some of the other people in town was that the gentleman that's doing now is not going to do it forever, and we need to do something now.
that's true, but at the same token, there's a lot of people that will fill in that position, and like you said, if they can't do it, the state will take care of it. I don't see where the urgency or the fear comes into that fact.
Well, there's no fear, it's just trying to get things done. I'm not afraid of a decision, I'm trying to always just do the best decision. But has anyone ever used state inspectors in a small town? Anybody?
Well, I can say this, I have had my house, well, Rich, the building inspector, one of my houses, come in with 3 state inspectors that go through that house, just on random, they just picked an
They just
inspector.
but are they dependent, like they talk about having the state police patrol our town, but the turnaround time for a state to get here is half an hour, 45 minutes. Because they
But
want to
you
get rid
don't
of
know
this.
what Hoyok's gonna be.
I don't know that. I think the model, from what I understood, was there's going to be a separate individual, a Rich, that's going to be here in this town. Now, when Rich was going through his test, he was not a commissioner, he was an inspector, and he needed a commissioner. Who did we turn to? Holyoke. The Holyoke building commissioner was overseeing Rich while he was going through the test when we were in the other building, when we were in the other town hall. So there is sort of a relationship with Holyoke doing that type of stuff. So I get that sort of process going through it, but we need to get somebody in that job. We need to get somebody there.
You had the person and the qualifications, and to be perfectly honest with you, if you signed a contract with Hoyok, you could have him. He could apply for that job in Hoyok and be here.
Correct.
Well, I'm going to disagree because they said they would give us X experience in there. And the person is going to be sitting here the hours that we need them. And one of the big benefits is that person is covered all vacations, all holidays, all sick time, where Rich, when he was out, and maybe Jim covered for him or somebody else covered for him. So they're going to give us somebody sitting here. It's going to be Rich, or it's going to, nobody's going to Hoyok unless it's off hours and you need something, so you get the added benefit of going over there. So to say that we're not going to have somebody sitting here dedicated to Southampton isn't accurate. And we are going through the contract process. It's a contract for service. They're vetting it through their town or a city council. They're going to approve it. It's going to come back to us. We'll look at it. Then it would go to legal for looking at it. So we're not done with it. And it's only for a trial period if we go through until the end of June. I mean, I personally didn't vote for the electrical and plumbing to be part of this. I voted for the building because, to me, if you got 2 people already here, leave them here.
Well, if you didn't vote for that, you didn't have a group, you didn't have a...
Well, we did. There was a consensus, and I'm fine with being outvoted on that. I mean, the building inspector's not there, so let's fill that hole first.
Well, how could you have a vote on it if you didn't vote for what everybody else was voting for?
You don't have to have a 5-0 vote in order for something to pass. You don't have to have it's a majority
Well,
vote.
you had 3 years here, you were voting for one thing.
Oh no, back then there was more than 3 of us. There was 4 or 5 of us.
Oh, that's 3.
4.
There was 4, one abstained.
Yeah.
It was voted 2 to 3, Jim.
No, 2.
It was 2 to 3, 1 abstained.
Yeah.
Because Liz was here.
There was 5 people here that
No,
night?
there was 4 people.
It was 2, 1,
4
and
people,
1.
1 person abstained.
Yeah.
2 people said yes, 1 person said nay. A majority means a majority of those who are physically present and able to vote. So it's really not even, it's able to vote. So of the 3 who were able to vote, it was 2 to 1.
I'm not trying to pull myself out of that because that's what the majority ruled, and it's for a good reason. We've got to find money. And she's talking about, not buying paper towels to save $700. So if we can save thousands and thousands and thousands, and way back when, the people said no, we want to cut the budget. It was 2 to 1 vote to cut the budget, and somebody years ago said, residents, you and I, aren't going to let it click in their head until it hurts them. And it's going to hurt a lot of people. It's not what we want for sure, but going to come to the end of the year and we're down $300,000, and people in the town are going to say, we voted not to. Why didn't you do your job? So this is part of doing our job, and are we going to have groups of people like this not liking us? Absolutely. But we're open to any ideas to save money for the town.
Well, that's what we're asking for. We're asking for some time in a public hearing, or at least a direct time of the meeting, so that we can have an hour or an hour and a half for everybody to get theirs in. Then you make a decision.
Well, Jim,
Your agenda said discussion. It didn't say discussion and vote.
No, well, the vote was to proceed. We haven't signed a contract.
Right.
And I listen. I mean, I'm listening to you now, Jim. And so if you want to if people wanna come in and voice their opinion, I will hear your opinion, what you
Well, I think
expect.
there's a few people, I'm talking, I think there's a few people.
Dougie Blanchard tore my ear off. I mean, I'm listening to whoever has an opinion, and I want to make it work. You know, when I look at what I do here as a volunteer, and what the town does, it's a service organization. Tax money comes in, and with that tax money, you provide service back to the taxpayers. And that's the way I look at my role as a volunteer and a selectman. I'm trying to provide the best services with what little money that we have. And the money's getting...
I'm not saying Hoyle is bad, I worked there. They did treat me good, I had no problems with it. I just think that's a wrong track for a small town. That's my own opinion. But like I say, you've got a couple other guys who really want to talk to you tonight, so.
Okay, no, but just to overall, the regionalization. You remember Diane Schindler, who was here as the town administrator?
I was here that night.
She went to HCOG, and her job at HCOG, Hampshire County of Governments up in Northampton, the old courthouse at the corner there, her job was regionalization. And she set off to do building inspector regionalization. And it got to a certain point, I don't know if it was Ludlow, whoever, dropped out and it just fell out. So there was a start of it, but then maybe this is what happened. People come out, they say, well, maybe wait a minute, and then it fell to the wayside. This is part of the process, Jim. This is why we're here. This is why we have open time for the public. This is why it's on TV. We want to have an open discussion with the people in town and hear their concerns. Okay? I'm sorry, sir.
Egg Winter, Gilbert Road. Are the town inspectors, were they notified that they might lose their job?
No.
No. Thank you.
Sir.
Thomas Sears, Southampton Plumbing Gas Inspector. For the town saving money, I can see the needs, but in regards to the electrical inspector and the plumbing gas inspector, our pay is based on permits. If there are no permits pulled and no inspection done, we do not get paid. So we'll say if this year, between the electrical inspector and myself, say if we had 200 permits each, we get a percentage of those permits. In 2 years, is this construction still going the same way? It may be back where it was back in the 90s. Maybe there might be 40 permits each, and you're only paid on that percentage of the permits pulled. So on our positions, how is that a burden to the town where we're trying to save money? And also, as inspectors, we both live in town and pay taxes. We take great pride in our job. We're doing continuing ed, and it's mandated by the county. And also, the younger ones that are coming into the trades are learning a lot of this continuing ed and learning not to be afraid to pull permits. The more permits that are pulled is better for the town. They're getting a percentage of the permit. But again, if there's no permits pulled, the electrical inspector, myself, there's no fee to pay out. And I just want to bring up one other thing. I was interested in the minutes of the meeting. And under Mass General Laws, Chapter 66, Section 10, the minutes shall be available at all times.
Within a reasonable time.
No, the minutes have to be available.
Was the meeting videotaped?
I don't know. I couldn't answer that.
Do you remember the letter you received in response to your request?
The Secretary of State said today, the minutes shall be available.
Yep.
Shall is a mandatory term.
Yeah, and as it was stated in the letter you received, the minutes are currently available for free online, the entire videotape of the minutes for free. The actual minutes will be available as soon as they're typed. Since they haven't been typed, they can't be available. You can't have something available that's not completed. And they have to be made available within 10 days of their actual creation. They haven't been created, therefore they're not available.
Again, as the Secretary of State today in Boston said, the minutes shall be available.
They are available, Mr. Sears. All you have to do is go to ECAT and watch it on TV, and the minutes are there. As for the term burden, it's not a burden pay for services. As a matter of fact, a fair pay for a fair day's wage work is what I would believe is appropriate, as Mr. Crevier would say. It's not the term of burden, it's trying to find a way to save money to get the same services for the citizens of the town. Again, the town voted 600 to 1,200 not to do the override. This is what we're left with. I'm sorry, this is the way it is, but it is the way it is. Am I happy about it? No. Am I concerned about services, town? Yes.
Well, I
Am I
mean,
concerned about laying off a cop? Yes.
well, the
Am I
services,
concerned about laying off EMTs and paramedics? Yes. Am I concerned about laying off teachers? Yes. Am I trying to save as much money as possible for the town so I don't have to cut EMS? Yes. Am I looking at the whole budget for what's best for the town? Yes. Am I looking at the package from Holyoke for the building inspector? Yes. Do I know what the outcome is going to be with Holyoke? No. It's a process of going through that to do what's best for the town. If Prop 2.5 had passed, we'd be in a totally different position than we are today.
well, in regards to that, it would have been nice if we were to think about, do we want to raise the fees? No one came to us and suggested that. I know the fees haven't been touched since, I believe, 2009. And that's how it's been since then. Nothing has changed.
Everything's on the table. I mean, Heather and I have talked about changing the fees to a more, competitive to our surrounding towns.
Right, but no one came forward to the electrical inspector or myself to get some input.
I guess I gotta say, we went to the towns where we're building the budget, trying to find ways to increase revenue and cut costs. And we asked everybody to come forward with their ideas. That would have been a perfect time if you had ideas on that to come forward. You didn't, and that's fine, but now's the time to do it. And like Dave was saying, this isn't a done deal. We're gonna look at what they propose. And I personally am gonna look at the advantages of an electrical and plumbing inspector in this package versus just a building inspector, which is an open position. And they're gonna give us pricing on both and savings on both. So I think whatever input we can get, if there's ideas out here, I'm gonna assume you're all trade related. So if there's ideas on how to increase revenue without cutting services dramatically, and to be honest with you, we gotta cut services somewhere,
Well, if you're cutting services, you're cutting the safety aspect of it, are you?
We're cutting teachers already.
Police officer, we're looking at regionalizing.
We're cutting highway. We're cutting.
Well, just like plumbing and gas, what can plumbing do to you? On the safety thing, you can be scalded. What can gas do to you?
No, I'm not saying we're cutting inspections, I'm just saying we're looking at cutting everything.
We're cutting
Well,
everything.
It's interpretation.
Cutting police officers. I mean, think about it. What's the most valuable thing that you have in your life? And what protects it? EMS.
Chief Silvernail's gonna get up here and say, we can't cut police, but we can cut this. And everybody has a good idea, but I mean, how do we make the cuts? There's 5 of us that have to cut hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of the year, so there's ideas out there.
Well, I understand you have to cut, but again, when you have 2 inspectors, it's only based on the permit that's pulled.
But we would get that revenue from the permits. That was based on the plan from Holyoke. We would get 100% of the revenue from the permits. And based on historic data, we would save X amount of dollars. Like you said, if the permits die, we're gonna lose money.
The economy's gone.
But if they go up, so it is a little bit of a crapshoot on that side. There's no doubt about it. But you gotta look at everything.
All right,
There's
thank you for
better
your time.
ideas. Appreciate it.
Eileen?
About the minutes, the minutes are ready even on her scrap paper that she writes down. It's public and they can be handed out right after the meeting. They don't have to be typed. If this gentleman wants the minutes, he can have them ready.
Eileen, when's the last time you asked the board to do that?
It
When you
goes
were-
to
when you-
every board.
But when was the last time you went up to a board and asked them to do that? Just tell me when, so I know.
I have no idea. Dick.
Because you haven't, because you know there's a process
But
of.
I'm just telling you the rules.
I'm just telling you that what we've done in the past is that the minutes get done, they get typed, and they get reviewed.
David,
You know that.
my town meeting minutes that I write down on a piece of paper, if they want them, they can have them that night. That is the law.
Thank you, Eileen.
Mayor. So according to the open meeting law guide, open session meeting records. The open meeting law requires public bodies to create and approve minutes in a timely manner. The law requires that existing minutes be made available to the public within 10 days upon request, whether they have been approved to remain in draft form. Materials or other exhibits used by the public body in open meeting must also be made available to the public within 10 days upon request.
I think we're going down the wrong path here, talking about this.
I just wanted to.
That's what Eileen said.
But I'm just saying, but if you guys want to know the minutes,
Available within
but if
10
you
days
want, if you
upon
guys
request.
want an answer to what happened, all I'm saying is, it's on video, just watch the tape.
I watched it.
Yeah, so it's there, I mean, you can't hide anything. The voice, the video is all there, if you have a question, it's there. If you want the official minutes, at some point it gets typed up and whatever. Yes, Mrs. Boyle, I'm sorry.
Hi, Patricia Boyle. I have a question, and it's really bothering me. Jim and I watched you guys on TV the night you voted to hire that young gentleman from Easthampton. You actually voted to hire him as the inspector. You shook his hand, you congratulated him, and now you threw him under the bus. You even asked him, well, how soon can you start? He said, 2 weeks. Does he even know what you guys did?
I was not here for the following meeting, so I can't say to exactly what happened after that, so I'd have to excuse
Well,
myself.
he left here thinking...
I shook his hand. There was a change, something happened when I wasn't here. So-
I don't think that's accurate. He was here, we did an interview with him, and we thanked him for coming, said we wanted, and we said but he left, said we wanted to talk about it, and we voted that we want to hire him, we want to bring him in the next meeting in order to discuss the hiring process and everything else. So we voted to talk to him more, to hire him. But what happened in between is that proposal came in from Holyoke, and we decided to put that on hold and to look into that first. So we didn't offer him the job, say we want to hire you. We voted to hire him as a board, and then we didn't go through the whole process, which, happens frequently. I mean, he was a nice gentleman, but, the opportunity came up that we have to look at, I guess, is the only thing.
Yeah, but you only saw that opportunity, wasn't it like the day before?
We talked to him twice so far.
No, I'm talking the Holyoke situation.
Right, we've talked to them twice. We got the proposal in the
The day before the meeting.
Well,
we got other ones.
What happened to the Holyoke inspector's interview? Now that you are looking at him to sign him in the contract, why didn't you hire him for this job? For Southampton? He wasn't even an effort. What happened to him?
That particular one, we didn't feel that he'd be the best fit for the town.
Sorry, sir.
What the hell, he's gonna be the building commissioner. If you sign the contract for Holyoke,
Well, we get a choice of who we're going to have over here. We get a say in it.
you're not gonna have any choice in that.
We have a say in it. There was
Well,
a...
I know.
Holyoke's drawing up the contract.
No, so
Yeah, but we have to
time out.
sign.
So let's slow down a little bit, okay? Let's go easy here. There's a gentleman in the front row, black t-shirt, raised his hand. You have a question, sir?
Well, my name's Jim Fisher, I'm the wiring inspector. I'm one of the guys you voted to fire.
We didn't vote to fire anybody.
You looked at her and said, what about the 2 guys that are working in this town? She said, they'll be out. You said, oh, well, I vote to pass this. It's on the TV, so whatever. I got a few other things, comments to make. I've been the wire inspector for 16 years. You made a statement, you don't know who to contact.
Excuse me?
You made a statement, somebody asked you, couldn't you contact?
No, but that wasn't the context. My statement was, what's on the agenda, you saw what was on the agenda tonight. ECAT, weights and measures. Should I call all the truckers in town? I'm sorry, we're gonna go with the state. ECAT, cable, should I call the cable customers in town?
Well,
That's what I mean.
If you have a trucker working for the town that you're gonna fire during the meeting, I would assume you call him, out of courtesy.
Well,
That's what I.
that's your opinion.
16 years of service.
Mr. Fisher, that's your opinion, sir.
It was stated in the July 29th meeting that I earned $15,000 for the year. So I walked upstairs, talked to the accountants. I've earned $10,000 average over the last 5 years. Okay? I pay federal taxes, state taxes, Medicare, the pension plan. By the way, I am an employee of the town. I'm not 1099. You allowed the gentleman from Hoyle to come in here and tell you I'm a subcontractor, 1099. I received a W-2 form. These guys signed payroll. You should know I'm on there.
Yeah, we know it, yeah.
Oh, well, you just nodded your head when you told you I was a subcontractor.
What are you gonna do, argue with them over something like that?
It's not an argument. You say, sorry, sir, you're making a presentation to us and you're facts are incorrect.
Well, we knew the facts. So,
Oh, you knew it?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, when you subtract all of that deductions, I took home $6,900. I divided that by 52 weeks. I earned $133 a week. Now I divided that by 8 hours a week, because that's what Hoyok's going to offer you. So I make $16 an hour. I looked at this as always doing the town a service. I looked at this as a public service to the town. I'm not in this for the money. The money's the last thing, obviously. I use my own fuel, I use my own cell phone, I use my own postage, I use my own long-distance calling. You think Hoyok's going to do all that? How can somebody from Hoyok come in and provide these services? My point is your numbers are skewed, okay? No office hours on Fridays, correct? They're not going to be up there on Fridays.
No, the town hall's closed.
Okay, so gentleman calls for an excavation inspection on Thursday. A lot of states got to do it in 24 hours.
Town hall may be closed 2 days a week next year with the budget cuts.
Okay.
So we will go from 4 days to 3 days possibly next year.
Okay, so how are you going to cover those inspections? You're going to have to pay the man overtime, right? You're going to have to drive.
Well, I don't know how we're going to pay for it. Next year's budget's looking much worse than this year's budget. We're already talking about furloughs. Prop 2.5 did not pass. Talking about cutting.
I hope you guys don't sit here and blame all the taxpayers for Proposition 2.5 not passing, because that's not fair.
All I'm saying is what we have. There's no blame. It's what it is.
$600,000. You got to go back to the budget heads and say, you know what? Based on the track record of Proposition 2.5 in this town, there's no way we're going to get $600,000. You should have squeezed that down and got bare bones, asked for $300,000.
Mr. Fisher, all I can say is that since I've been here since '04, there has been no money. And every year, we've cut the budget. It is at the point right now that if we don't change how we're funding the town, it's not going to go in the right direction. And it's not going in the right direction. That's why Prop 2.5 is so important to pass this year, because we've seen a gradual decrease of revenue. Now, the Great Recession of '08, it's sort of trickled down, and here we are. So now this is what we have for money. This is what we can pay for services. This is what we need today.
I could have told you before you went to vote.
I know. In 10 years,
$600,000, you asked for $1 million.
in 10 years, what we need is here, and the money to pay for is here. It's not going to change.
Well, I just hope you take some ownership for that Proposition 2.5. All I see is you seem to be blaming the voters. I
voted for it. I supported it. I am one vote.
I agree with
I tried to.
I'm telling you why it did. I'm telling you why everybody voted no.
Why did everybody vote no?
Because if I want to go, okay, I'm going to go to the bank, and I'm going to build a house for $600,000. I'm going to tell the bank, you know what, give me $1 million, because I might want a better roof, and I want better windows.
But that's your perception of why we needed $1 million.
Because we needed
$1 million. We needed because
to put $400,000 in the stability fund for a rainy day.
We need that money. We need that money. We used that money to balance last year's budget.
Yeah, we needed to buy equipment for the highway department, the police department, the fire
that
department.
argument was.
Well, one person's idea of a rainy day is not.
But we used that money. We used that money to balance. We took money out of that account last year to balance last year's budget, and that's what it's for. It's for a rainy day fund. But since been sitting on this board, revenue has been going down. Cost is going up. How much was a gallon of gasoline in 2005?
Believe me, I'm taking that loss every inspection I drive out.
So am I. Well, not my inspection, but I drive around. It's what, $4 a gallon. What was it in 2005? So think of the increase in that. The town is in the same position as any household would be. And that's, Mr. Fisher, please understand that the decisions we're making is based only on money, basically, what we can afford. And I'm not trying to disparage your commitment to service to the town. And I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying, Mr. Fisher, you're not hearing what I'm saying. There's no money. We're trying to save money. We're trying to be creative. We're trying to do the things.
I understand.
Because the core thing for me,
Because when my dad lost his job in first grade and we lost the house, we lost everything when my dad lost his job. I do not want to lay anybody off. It's devastating to a family. So I'm trying to preserve all the full-time employees in town as best I can to provide the services for town as best I can, but there's no money now. The money is not there.
I understand that, but I'm trying to say, how in the world can Hoyle afford to drive all the way over here? It takes me.
No,
It
it's
takes
gonna
me
be,
an hour to
but
do
the
one
position,
inspection, and I live in town. How is he gonna do it with the times they're proposing? The other thing in their proposal is they're gonna raise all the rates. It's right in there. The first thing they're gonna do is do a comprehensive study on the cost of the permits. What do you think they're gonna do? They're gonna raise all the rates. We need Hoyle to do that for us.
well, we asked for again, as John had said, we had asked for ways to change some of the deficit that went out to everybody.
It went out to the budget heads.
The budget heads.
It went out to Rich. Rich never asked me. I was never told it was a meeting. I was never told I could come here.
They're open meetings, and, you know, until it hits home.
Somebody else have something to say?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people here like to say something.
Sure. This gentleman here.
By all means, let somebody else take over. Somebody might say something I was gonna say.
Jim Hoyle Jr., I think one of the things that I keep hearing is you guys talk about a budget. And when you talk about a budget, like she was talking about cutting paper towels and stuff like that, so that's one thing. When you want to save some money, cut some paper towels. But when you're talking about the building department, aren't you talking about control of the town? Just like you mentioned about giving the police department to the state police when the services suffer. If you did that, isn't this kind of the same thing? By giving it to Holyoke, our services would suffer because you wouldn't be able to get an inspection when you wanted it. When we want an inspection from him, he doesn't come on work time. He sometimes comes at what time we need him to come. In other words, if we have hardwood floors that are drying or something, he'll come at a time that's appropriate for us. Maybe inconvenient for him, but not for us. In other words, to make us move forward. By giving it to Holyoke, Holyoke will then control everything that we do. So if something is wrong with somebody in town, Holyoke is going to be able to tell somebody in our town what we can and can't do. Versus a guy that lives here or works around here may have empathy or understanding of a problem in town and treat the person fair, where Holyoke's not going to care about anybody here.
Well, we're hoping that, one of the things we had proposed when we were talking with Holyoke is that we would have more oversight of the individual that was here, sort of like the oversight of Rich. They would just be part of the Holyoke system. We would be able to, if there was a concern of misbehavior or something, that there would be an accountability. This program that we're talking about is a pilot program from now until June with reconsideration at that time. This is not like for the next 10 years. This was to see if it was going to work. And this is part of the process. Mr. Boyle, you're giving me your concerns to me, and I hear how it's important to have flexibility for the inspector to work with the contractors, and I hear that. I don't know that Holyoke, what if Holyoke could do the same thing?
I mean,
Have you had
do something like that? It's not just them, it's actually to control the town. It'd be like giving the control of the school to Holyoke. In other words, it's not just paper towels. If you want to cut a budget and save money, then take the pencils away from the building department or something like that. This is much, much different. When you talk about saving money, this is control of a town, of a literal whole town, of a department. Not this. Saving money is different. So yeah, like my dad said, you had a guy that you could have hired for $57,000, but you voted to pay Holyoke $95,000. How, and maybe to save money when you had a guy sitting here for $57,000 that would have started in 2 weeks. It doesn't. I'm just listening to all this, and that doesn't even make any sense.
But there's also some of the fees fit in. I think they're looking at all the numbers, not just the salary.
I understand.
So it's more complicated than
actually. I get it. There's other stuff.
There's other stuff that
maybe
mixes.
It's 70 or 80,000, but still, it's just control.
But I get that, and I don't want to give. Holyoke wanted to succeed Southampton for the water back in the day. I don't know when that was, and it was voted down. I don't want to give up control of the town, but I'll have to be creative to save money for the town as best I can.
But creative with paper towels is okay. Creative here, maybe not. Again, would control of the select board be okay either? There's private. How many important departments are in the town? There's maybe 6 to 10, and this is one of those.
Well, everybody's going to say they're important, and that's the issue.
No. I'm saying everybody's important. The school, the police department. But like you said, the state police running the police department would suffer. You guys said it yourself. The response time would be less. It's gonna be the same with the building department, no matter what they say.
Have you worked with the Holyoke Building Department?
It doesn't matter. If it's out, it's like, for one thing, it's Hampton County, we're Hampshire County.
But can I just ask, has anyone worked with Holyoke Building Department?
Yeah.
Mr. Whiteley, do you have any opinion of that, just in general? Because I'm not a contractor.
All I know is in Southampton, you can get an inspection within 24 hours, almost any time. In Holyoke, you can probably get one in 3 days, maybe 4. You have to be there.
True.
Sir? What's your name?
I'm Peter Mosiccio. I'm a plumber. I live in Weston, and we did a lot of houses in Southampton, especially with the Net Circle, if you're aware of it, energy construction. And I did work in Holyoke for the permit, so you have to actually call City Hall in Holyoke to get an inspection. We work hard. We sometimes work over the weekend. Houses for sale, we have to get inspections done. Sometimes I call Tom Sears, local inspector on a weekend. Tom, can you do me a favor to get this inspection, because house for sale? No, we work hard for this, and it has to be done. I mean, it's our money.
Oh, I hear you.
And I think it's going to be, it's going to be bad for the town, for us especially, for our people in church.
Sir?
Anthony Locker, Master Plumber. Tommy Sears is the most knowledgeable professional plumber inspector I know. By you allowing yourself to lose him, you're going to be losing one of the most valuable assets this town you have. I've done 3 years of schooling, my journeyman, my master's, with all under him. I can call him at 7:30 at night. He will come to the house, inspect my work, sign off on it so that the next guy can move on. My only question to you is, have you, compared to Tommy's professionalism, have you ever met the plumbing inspector from Holyoke?
No, I have not.
Well, maybe you should meet him before you decide to give him a contract.
Sorry, the gentleman in the back wants to speak, sir.
My name is Bob Cannon, and I happen to have the opportunity to sell a lot of houses for people in Southampton, and I get the opportunity to work with these gentlemen here. And I just wanted to point out that they're not asking for any free rides. They didn't cry when their paycheck went down 5 years ago. They didn't stay the same, they went down. They're not asking you, they're asking for service. When we sell a house, it's really important that we make sure we make dates, we make timetables. If somebody messes up and doesn't show up on time, he might have a flooring guy scheduled next. It doesn't just mess that up, it messes that up all the way down the line. So it's a very, very complicated thing. They will pay for their share of the services that they got. They pay for everything. They employ people, they put houses up, they provide homes for people. You say that it doesn't pay for itself? I beg to differ. On Pleasant Street and Gun Road, there's 15 houses up there, and there's 2 kids in the school system. So the people who are buying these houses for $500,000 and $600,000, they have no kids, or they have very few kids. So I want to point out that the people who work there on those, the incomes that were generated, they pay taxes, they pay, they go to restaurants, they support the community. So there's a whole residue of things that happen there. I would hope that maybe you would consider a fee for service type of people that would come in, a building inspector, a plumbing inspector. That way, they get 80% of the money, 20% goes back to the town. There's no negative, it doesn't cost the town, it gains the town, and then you've got services. If you go to Holyoke, who are they accountable to? They're not accountable to these guys. You guys are accountable to the taxpayer. They're accountable to the people in Holyoke.
You would be accountable to it as well. But just go back to the fee thing. One of the things that you have to worry about as well is you just can't base it on fees. So that's why there has to be a salary, because there has to be an enforcement aspect. So whoever the building inspector is has to be out looking for, say, a job site that has not pulled a permit, that's, somebody comes into town, a plumber comes in, doesn't pull a permit, that sort of puts those that do pull permits at a disadvantage. So there's an enforcement aspect that is beyond the fees, that is the salary base that we have to pay for. So that's part of the, it's not just fees and whatnot.
Right, so I get that part of it. So we've got to figure out, okay, we need to raise $50,000 to pay for the building inspector. So you have to make sure the fees equal the pay and the services equal the cost. And unfortunately, the way it works is when the fees get out of whack, they do go on the cost of the house. It's real simple. The cost, the materials, the cost of the land, the labor value equals the price. And so if you need to generate more, these aren't the people to pick on. These are the people that generate money.
Again, Mr. Kent, I'm not trying to pick on anybody. I'm trying to save money for the town. And I'm listening to what...
You're not going to save money for the town because they'll pay for the services they need to produce the product they do. And not only that, but they provide homes for people. They provide jobs for people. And to offer less services, which I firmly believe, like giving it to Holyoke, is not going to be giving them the service that they need and making sure that we have the ability to turn over houses to lay people, to people who want to buy a home, to make sure things happen on time. So anyways, I hope you consider that, try to figure out how the cost is and what you have to do for fees to generate the expense, to cover the expenses that the town has. And so hopefully, you guys figure that out.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Nathaniel Hubry, I'm a student at Tommy's. I'm going to be sitting for my journeyman's and possibly pulling permits in your town. I'd like to touch base at the point here that Tommy and the electrical wire guy are really trying to hammer away at. You guys are going mostly at the building inspector, and Tommy brought up a good point. They're paid by the fees that you guys collect, not by a salary. Is that how Holyoke is being paid, by a salaried person? Two guys that are going to come in and replace for these two guys.
But the whole nut put together, there was a cost savings.
Mm-hmm.
To break through, I'd have to have a spreadsheet in front of me to go through in detail. Some of the fees do go to the inspectors, but with going with Holyoke, those fees would come directly to the town. So those fees would go directly to the town, which is the taxpayers. So they wouldn't go to an inspector, and by combining that with the services of the building inspector and the plumbing and the electrical inspector, there was a cost savings for the town in general.
Okay.
So that it all sort of, it's not like one thing. You can't just take one part of it. It's like the whole package is the savings. And I'm sorry, I can't recall the details, but again, just to remind everybody, this is a process of working through this. If there are other options, I think Mr. Cannon hit something right on the head and saying, well, why don't we just increase the fees to cover the total costs of the building inspector? I don't know what the fees would be. We'd have to average them over 5 years, figure out which fees generate which amount of money, and those fees would definitely be then just transferred onto the taxpayers.
Okay, but you brought up a good point again. You said the building inspector. You're getting rid of two local guys who do this on their own dime, most of it. I mean, you pay them part of the fee. You're not paying them a salary.
Again, sir, what I'm trying to say is that in the overall aspect, that if we just had the building inspector from Holyoke and kept our two, the electrical and plumbing, we'd have this cost savings. But if we had the building inspector and a plumbing and electrical, the savings was more. And I can't go through the numbers. I don't recall the numbers. It's a couple of weeks ago, and I can't remember the exact details. But as the select board moves forward in talking to Holyoke, obviously what everyone is saying to me tonight carries forward in that discussion. And if I see at some point that this is not the appropriate thing for the town, then I'll say that. I mean, you need to understand that we're just trying to save money for the town.
Well, everyone's trying to save money. I understand that. But in another respect, is there a way that maybe legal can turn around and get them in a part of Holyoke's positions? here?
Well, one of the options was just the building inspector, and we would continue the services of Mr. Sears and Mr. Fisher.
Okay.
That was one option, and there was a certain savings with that.
I don't think they knew about that. It sounds like they just got their jobs canceled.
No, there's no signed contract.
Okay.
This is an ongoing discussion, and we have meetings, and we have open time for the public, and we listen to people. People write letters, people call me, I tell them who to call, who to talk to, to get their voices heard.
Yeah.
But, so one proposal was building inspector retaining the services of Mr. Sears and Mr. Fisher, savings is X.
Yep.
The other proposal was building inspector, Holyoke plumbing, Holyoke electric, savings was more.
Mhm.
So when we looked at the two programs, so savings is less, savings is more. We went with savings is more.
Yeah.
And that, we haven't signed anything.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing discussion, and if it turns out that maybe that's not the right thing to do for the town, then we don't need to do it. Okay?
We should have a board that figures this out for you guys. In other words, you guys are sitting here trying to manage the whole town when there should be 3 or 4 people or 5 people that have different interests involved that figures out this part of the department for the town and gives some recommendations. Because you guys are so focused on the budget, you're not kind of listening to the whole problem of it being given, the town given away. And because you're so focused on the budget, maybe let somebody else come up with some better ideas and present them to you.
I'm listening.
Yeah, but you're listening kind of, we're all talking kind of off the shop. In other words, if a board was formed and was able to come up with some decent time and give some recommendations, just like Holyoke was given time to give you a contract. I mean,
They got a committee recommending a contract.
So let us have a committee to bring to you our proposals of what we think, so the town just doesn't get given away to Holyoke. That's the whole point that everybody's here. Nobody wants to be given away to Holyoke. Nobody cares about this or that. It's given to Holyoke.
The other aspect of the building department is the zoning enforcement officer that I think you're all forgetting about. The building department is the zoning enforcement officer. So that person needs to know our zoning bylaws from front to back cover. And I agree with all these trade people that are here, that I don't agree that Holyoke is the right choice. But is Holyoke going to know our zoning bylaws? When we had Rich here, or whoever his replacement is right now, we can go in there and ask a question to him and say, I want to do X. Can I do X? And he may say, no, you have to do Y. Is Holyoke going to know our zoning bylaws? That's why the planning board, I don't know if they were part of this discussion at all, need to be a part of the discussion. There's other boards, like Mr. Boyle stated, need to be involved with that part of it. There's the planning board, the zoning board of appeals, that know our zoning bylaws and deal with them on a day-to-day basis. Because the building department right now is the zoning enforcement officer. So if there's a zoning issue, the Board of Health members contact the zoning enforcement officer and say, please go out and do an inspection here. Is Holyoke going to offer that same service?
That was part of Mark. That was part of the discussion that whoever it was would become whoever we hire. First of all, may not know Southampton's zoning bylaws. They just may not. Chances are they don't, depending who we hire. So whoever was going to be hired through the Holyoke system, one of the things that they was to be expected is that they would become familiar with the town's bylaws, zoning bylaws.
Okay.
Forget that. Yeah, so we covered that in discussion. I don't think that the ZBA or the planning board need to get involved in that. This is a municipal agreement between Southampton and Holyoke. It doesn't have to be into that detail. It's certain expectations. This is the job description we expect. This is obviously they would know the zoning bylaws. Obviously, there's an enforcement issue, and obviously the service for inspections and whatnot, and answering questions for taxpayers.
I know you don't have the contract in front of you and the aspects of the
There's no contract yet. There's no
or the
contract.
proposed contract, okay? And I don't know if that's been made available to the public or not.
I don't know if it is.
It's a public record. It was a document shared at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. So a public record, 20 cents per page. I think it's like 5 to 10 pages, so it's a couple dollars.
Looking at the FYI budget for 15, the building inspector's budget is $50,000. The clerical right now is $6,168, and his expenses are $4,000. So that's up to roughly $60,000. And hearing Mr. Sears and Mr. Fisher speak, they don't have a budget. They get their pay from the fees that are paid. So we're going from a budget of $60,000 to a budget of $94,000.
But the fees, again, the fees will not go to the individual. The fees will come back to the town. So there's a part of the equation, and Mark, I can't recall the exact details offhand, but the amount of the fees makes it a profitable situation for the town.
Okay. I think other people should be a chance to review that and look at it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because I think there's some good points that have been brought up tonight by different people here that need to be looked at thoroughly before any decision is made. I understand you guys have a tough job to do, and it's not easy, balancing budgets and so forth, but this is, I think, a big issue that needs to be looked at and looked at slowly, not just taken on quickly.
No, I hear you.
Okay, thank you.
You know, just one thought on the expenses. You know, you got to include insurance, and family coverage is $12,000 a year. You got all the coverage for when he's on vacation for 4 weeks, he's out sick for 2 weeks, he's got personal days. So that's where all these costs, FICA and Social Security.
Correct.
So that's why it all adds up to that.
But as you know, Mr. Fisher said, he doesn't get insurance.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't. He's not on the town.
No, this is just for the building inspector I was talking
So
about.
it's like usually.
Right, but you're going to pay that to Hoyle too. That's going to be.
That's all included.
Part of that $94,000.
It's all in there.
They're not going to give that away.
And I don't want to compare 50 with 90 because that's not a fair comparison.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Boyle, this is the gentleman over here. Sir?
Ryan Gillagher, Chair of the ZBA. Now, I can understand that the process that you're going through at first doesn't really need to take us and the planning board together, but I think the way that it's kind of moving, was it on the agenda? Sure. Did I look at it? Was it worded in a way I would have been like, hey, I should go? Or did I get an email? Did anyone give me a heads up about what was transpiring? No, I found out about it another way. I had spoken to John from the planning board. I said, hey, do you know what's going on with this? And he said, no, what are you talking about? So I understand we're a little bit out in the dark, but with Richard, when I dealt with him all along, we worked kind of hand in hand, and being a volunteer, doing my duty, it was 7 days a week. Richard knew that during the day it was busy for me, so he'd call me about zoning issues and zoning enforcement things he had with things that I was working on, meetings that he needed to come to back and forth. I mean, we'd work together on nights, Saturdays, Sundays, and you know, it worked. It was fluid. It wasn't 7 to 3:30, Monday through Friday. You know, we were both accessible. And I think that's one thing that I know it's not finalized, but we really need to look at it. And I would hope that like our board, zoning board, planning board, board of health, everyone that's kind of all intertwined would be at least, and the opportunity, we could sit down and brainstorm. And I could say, you know, was everything with Richard 100% perfect? No, there's always flaws with some kind of process. But what we can do to work and how accessible, I mean, I'm concerned with how accessible, if it goes to Hoyoke and whoever handles the position comes out, what his hours are, how accessible is it going to be? You know, I can't always have a conversation with someone, like I said, 7 to 5 o'clock. Is he going to be answer his phone at 7 o'clock at night? Is he going to be available Saturday afternoon? Same thing with planning board, like Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning, that kind of thing. And in a small town with boards that you have volunteers, you need that flexibility to make things work. It can't be as cookie cutter as, I'm going to say, Hoyoke is a city, where it's more structured. That's what I wanted to come on that tonight. You know, you were on the board with me. We had a hard enough time just trying to get members to come.
Define a 6-foot fence for me. You can do that.
Right.
No, I hear what you're saying. You know, you bring up good points, and in my experience, being on executive board for my company, doing this, when you're in a position to make a decision or to vote on something, you do the best what you can from your heart for what's best for the town. It's no malintent. It's always what's for best. And dollars of donuts, 2 weeks later, someone's gonna say, how come I didn't hear about that? Whether it's in the business world or whether it's in this. And I think the opportunity to sit here and listen to your concerns is the way to sort of fix that. Because there's no way in heck I could have called everybody and said, by the way, come on down.
Right, and I understand that, and that's why I'm not here beating the drum that, how come I didn't know? I heard about it, okay, all right, I deal with this every day. Pick up the pieces, shake it out, what are we gonna do? That's why I'm here, voicing my opinion. I know John Furman wasn't able to make it tonight, and just throw it out there that, yeah, we would, if we're going this road and we're gonna do it, we've gotta, our boards need to be brought in so we can have a discussion if this is the way it's gonna go, or not. So that's why I'm here, to reach out.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we, as we're moving forward, and obviously this is open to everybody that's here and anybody else that's not here, is that maybe as we move forward, and I'm just sitting as chair tonight, so it's gonna be up to Liz as chair, but my recommendation is maybe we should have a get-together with the ZBA and the planning board and the Board of Health, and their concerns and what their expectations of the building inspector is, with time, more time for opinion from the public as well, time for the public, and sort of as we're going through this process, make sure that we meet those concerns for the other individuals in the town. But the bottom line for doing this was no malintent. The bottom line is that there's no money. And I'm trying to say
and I understand that. You're trying to skin the cat, so we need to look at it and say, what's the best way? Maybe we look at the thought or the idea that we put a small salary and then a percentage of the fees is tacked on, like the electrical and the plumbing. And I could say, take the ZBA hat off as a citizen of Southampton with doing work in this town. Both these guys have been great. The same thing with flexibility. You call Jim for an inspection, he grabs it at 7:30 on his way home, or Tom, the same kind of thing. Yeah, I got to go to a soccer game. I'll get it, which is great. And you have that in a small town. You have that.
Right, but it was never a comment about their ability to do their job.
Right. No, I understand. It's one of the things that I, take the ZBA out that I want to put out there. But absolutely, we need to look at how we can cut the costs. So, I understand a lot of us didn't go to the budget meeting to what we could do, and here we are now. We're trying to figure out, you guys threw a flag out, and everyone's trying to figure out what we can do would be the best for the town. So this is a time that, like you said, if we can have some open time, or is there a committee to be created to figure out?
Well, I don't know if we need a committee as much as we just need to sit down and listen to each other. And I think, I don't know what the schedule is like for the next couple of weeks for the select board meeting, but it sounds like whatever Holyoke's doing is sort of in committee, so, it's not coming back to us anytime soon. As long as, is it Mr. Healy that's doing the inspections now? As long as Mr. Healy holds out, I don't want to overburden somebody who's stepping up to the plate. I don't know what we have for a backup plan if Mr. Healy can't do it. But if we want to put on an agenda, a joint meeting with the ZBA, the planning board, and the Board of Health, and an open time for the public, come up with a plan that perhaps, saves as much money or is as beneficial with that balance between saving money and service. We're always trying to do that. But right now, we're really down to trying to save money so we can provide service. I think that's the point we're at right now. But if we could set up an agenda or one of the meetings come up in the next couple of weeks where we could have that meeting, then it might be a next step forward for more discussion.
That makes the best sense you got.
Thank you. I'm trying.
That's it, you're on it now.
I'm trying, okay?
But also, you should add in here precise numbers. There's nothing in the Hoyle contract that spells it out precisely, and nothing in Heather's number that tells you exactly the numbers you need to hear.
Right.
Right now, with a new inspector, you still could make money, but I think you need precise. You got a little bit of guesswork in those numbers here. Okay.
That was just a proposal, though, so we will get
I
final.
understand, but Heather's number are not the real thing. They're not there, they can't be calculated the way she's got them.
Just to let you know, Jim, I bought them from the accountant's office. I didn't just create a number off the.
Well, let me ask you this. Did the accountant give you a letter stating that they weren't for that plan? Did they or did they not?
They gave me that number, they sent any correspondence they had to the select board directly.
No, that's not the question I asked. Were they for?
That's the answer you're gonna get though, Jim.
Okay,
I'll-
okay.
Mr. Boyle,
They understand.
I'll tell you directly that they're not for it. We got a
Okay,
letter.
all right, so the accountant has the numbers.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say. And the treasurer has the numbers.
Yeah.
So that's not what she wanted to tell me.
Well,
She just told me that's good.
Let me tell you that they're not for it, not because it's not going to save money. It's because they don't want to have somebody coming from the outside. We don't either. I was on the finance committee for 10 years, and I was the chair the last few years. I did about 40 or 50 hours preparing the budget this year, did a presentation. We didn't have department heads showing up. We had such a lackadaisical attitude towards budgets because every year we're going to find the money. Every year we're going to find the money. It's the first year we're not finding the money. I can tell you the 4 people that come to the board meetings every session we have. Same 4 people. When you folks showed up, I knew there was an issue, but it was great to see people in the room.
These are all heads of their department. They're here.
And I can't prove this, but I'm going to guess that half the people that are promoting, not making cuts in the budget voted against the Prop 2.5 override.
I voted for it.
No, I mean, I can't prove it, and I don't want to prove it, but I've heard people say, I'm not voting for it. And I said, well, you got a sign on your yard. People look at it from a town point of view. I want the town to succeed, but I don't personally want to pay $500 extra. So people, when they go into the voting booth, it was 2 to 1. It's very clear. And if we can get this kind of conversation going, like I said, the plumbing inspector, electrical inspector, and the building inspector, if we get those folks to come proactively and tell us, if we raise fees by this much, we'll get this much revenue to the town, when everybody knows we're hemorrhaging money, but it comes to the point where we're telling people we're going to start cutting and you folks come out, which is great, but you're a specialized group for this, the trades. You don't want this to happen. When we sit down with the school, we sit down with the police, we sit down with the library, they're going to bring out the same group. So our challenge to you is, how are we going to save the money? You come to us and tell us how you're going to save the money. If we can keep all the services like they are, if we can open town hall 5 days a week, I mean, I can't get here during the day, I work. We would love to do it, but we can't, and that's the key. The Hampshire regional budget is 56% of our total budget. We have absolutely zero control over that budget. So we only manage 44%? And of that, X amount of millions, 8 millions goes to Norris. We're managing this amount of the budget to make these cuts from.
Let's have a meeting Dave proposed.
That's what?
Let's have that joint meeting that Dave is talking
Yeah,
about.
but we still have to look at filling the building inspector's position. Like I said, I personally, after listening, I like the idea, and again, I'm just throwing it, and I haven't talked to anybody, is maybe we work with Hoyoke to fill the building inspector. We don't touch electrical and plumbing, and it gives this group and the rest of you a time to come up with more ways to make it revenue positive for Southampton, and then when this contract ends, if we can figure out ways, we hire our own person. So an interim plan to get us where we want to go. I mean, like I said, I'm not in favor of displacing people that are already here.
Nothing to say that Hoyoke City Council is going to vote for this.
Well, they gave us 2 options. No, I mean, it's a negotiation, it's a contract for service. But it's,
So we could be wasting a lot of time and come up with nothing.
well, if we waste a lot of time and we come up with some great ideas and we get you folks to come to meeting with ideas, I think it's well worth my time. I mean, for what we're getting paid, oh, we're not getting paid, okay. For we're getting paid, I mean, we're here because we want to help the town, like you're here because you want to help, the town too. So we're all here for the same reason.
George is, go ahead, George.
One of our regulars said, nice to see you.
A couple of weeks ago, I suggested that we could save some money. Joe Slattery is retiring. He has the water department. Merge a water department and a highway department. Instead, you're going to fill that slot on the 13th or 14th. We pay him $69,000 a year. We could save $50,000, and the highway department gets an extra $20,000 or whatever. But merge those two, and we automatically save $50,000.
It's more complicated than that, George.
I don't care if it's complicated or not. You can work this out, work that out.
George, we already tried that in '05 when we...
No, that had nothing to do with '05. This guy is leaving.
George, they have to put it in, you're taking things out of context, so people understand your argument. The DOR recommended that we go from a highway department to a DPW. which as a selectman, I proposed and supported at annual town meeting. Individuals got up out of the audience and said, no, you're taking away our right to vote for the water commissioners. And so putting a DPW in this town was voted down in '05. That's what you're saying to do. It's already been voted down by the town. We've had this
We had
discussion.
money back then. We don't have any money
We don't
now.
have any money, George. I know that, but we've already had this discussion. The only way to do it is to bring it to the annual, and you make a DPW, you incorporate the water department, the people in town lose the right to vote for the water commissioners, but they have to get over that to save the money to have a DPW. That Ed Carley ran as a DPW.
And schedule a town meeting.
It has to be at the annual. It won't happen until next year.
But that's.
Don't fill a slot.
I'm just saying,
If
that's
you don't fill a slot, we're not paying anybody.
what we need to
If
fix.
we don't fill a slot, have a meeting, and go from there.
I think we're looking for ideas, and I think we should follow through on that idea.
I'm sorry.
Mark Sherry from Pomeroy down the road. One number I haven't heard yet is you said that to hire, go into the whole group of the Hoyle inspectors was $94,000. What would be the savings at that number? You said it was a big savings. What would the town save versus the way we've been? Are you talking 10,000? Are you talking 50,000?
It's 10 plus.
10,000.
So for $10,000, we're having this argument.
So let me just go back to in 2008, 2 weeks before Halloween, after the state had already cut its budget, they slapped us with another 11% cut. 2 weeks before Halloween, we seriously contemplated shutting the streetlights off to save $20,000. $10,000 is $10,000. I'm sorry.
Oh, I understand
So,
that.
I mean, so that's how bad it was, and it hasn't gotten any better than that. So, I don't know if that answers you.
No, I was just wondering what the number is. So it's 10 grand plus or minus.
Well, the reason I say plus is I've only met with Julio once, and we started negotiating some numbers and tweaking what they had originally thought based on the little information they had. After having more information, the numbers were able to be adjusted.
Now, do you have what the permit fees were for the town for last year?
I do not have that in front of me.
And if you said you went up with those for 5%, my guess is you're gonna gain 10%.
Based on the numbers that they had already looked at, and I believe that they actually did their homework on this one, they believe that our plumbing and electrical fees were already on par with theirs, which is regionally equivalent around. However, our building inspection fees, just the building inspection fees, could be looked at going higher. But remember that the one thing that was interesting about the inspector fees is right now the inspectors get a percentage. So as folks have said, we currently don't make or really lose anything with the inspector fees because, we only get 20% anyway. But if we went with polio, we would be getting 60%.
I was looking more at the building, moving over the building inspection fees. Here again, you have to look to see what they are comparable around. I don't know about the other buildings around here, but whatever it costs, I pay. You just pass it down the line.
This goes right down to
It has to go down the line. This is the cost of doing business. So, I mean, that's another thought is maybe you make it up there and you're in the same boat. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
The Tammy Wilderness Plumbing meeting. These inspection fees that we're talking about, is that for even if a home is doing a renovation and things like that? Okay. Do all these people here know that there's 171 families that are being affected by the buses being stopped, that they're going to have to dish out $225 this month? So there's going to be even less people wanting, or less families that are going to be doing construction and paying fees?
One of the things that I'm concerned about is that because of the budget cutbacks at the schools, classroom sizes are going to go up. So now instead of 20, maybe we're talking 30 kids in a classroom. My mother used to teach second grade in Lowell, 40 kids. They called her Sergeant McDougal, keep it to a dull roar. Okay? And, but seriously, my concern is that, and I go back to 2.5, and you have to understand, because I'm looking at the long range. if we have to keep cutting services and classroom size goes up, then school of choice money goes away. School of choice money goes away, less money for the school, classroom size goes up. Classroom size goes up, maybe it's not as a desirable community to go to. Maybe property values go down. So it's all part of a larger picture. And when I talk about this, 2014 was a seminal year for the town of Southampton to make a change in the course of its financial direction. I really believe that, because we had to change course, and we haven't. And next year is going to be less money. And maybe there'll be less Chapter 70 money, less money from the state. Cherry sheet money is less money for roads, less money to repair the bridges in town, less money for the schools. And you're just going to see the quality of life continue to go down.
Well, I just hope we're not counting on these permits being taken out to try to cover this cost. When, these families are trying to come up with money just to send their kids to the school, because they live within 2 miles of the school.
Right.
It's just that
The radius was changed, so kindergartens have to walk 2 miles now, or something like
Yeah,
that?
if you're within 2 miles.
The kid
they
would have
want
to
you
walk 2 miles.
Or you pay $225 per kid.
Right. I mean, this is the reality of
And these are all the smaller homes that are near the school that would be doing, I'm gonna renovate the bathroom this year, I'm gonna do this, fix this room up, or have put water sprinklers in, or whatever. They're not gonna take those permits out to do it. They have to send their kids to school now.
wait till the 8-foot wide sidewalks show up. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, right out here.
No, the 8-foot wide sidewalks are going in and down over there in front of Opa and stuff. Who's going to maintain that? It goes right in front of your house.
Yeah.
Bylaw says,
We've got sidewalks here that they wanna rip up already and put on the other side.
but it's an important time that the town of Southampton to make some hard choices. And unfortunately, there's no easy choices here. So, anybody else? I'm sorry, young lady, you had your hand?
Suzanne Fisher. I don't remember seeing on the agenda for 7/29 for that meeting, proposal from Hoyle. Was it on the agenda?
It has to be on the agenda.
Yes, it was the second item under the appointments. It was the one right after where they were talking about regionalization possibility of dispatch. It was an introduction for John Bloomberg to speak
Yes.
pertaining to the matter.
So it was talking about dispatch.
No, it was the second item. I'll pull up the agenda. It'll just take me a moment.
And the other thing is, right in the meeting, you were voting on, okay, we're saving this amount of money, but you haven't even gone to the finance committee to see if it actually was advantageous to vote on it, correct?
But at this point, it's just to move forward. We weren't signing a contract. It's all part of a discussion. At some point, finance would weigh in. It's whenever we do any of these things, it's sort of like you have to start someplace with a discussion. So it's just that's the point of the starting of discussion. It's not like starting tomorrow, this gentleman from Holyoke is going to be down the hallway. It's going to take weeks, months, or whatever to do that. So it's part of an ongoing discussion. Sir?
Yes, Jim Fisher again. I had one other item. I think they say she made a statement, Hoyok's gonna do it for 60%. I take 80% of the fee, you guys take 20, which by the way, I don't know where that 20% goes. Was that ever discussed?
Goes back into the general fund.
Goes to the revolving fund.
Right, so you're gonna lose that money, and you're gonna put it into the fund to pay for the building,
No.
the new buildings.
The,
You're gonna use that money to pay for them.
they're
So-
only gonna take 40% instead of 80%.
So, okay, I told you what I earned per hour taking 80%. He's gonna come down here for $8 an hour? That's what it's gonna, those are hard math figures, there's no way. It's a bag of magic beans you're trying to sell. They're gonna hand it over. They have to, there's no choice. So just be careful looking at the contract.
In line.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ryan?
Yeah, one last thing. When you try to get together for a meeting, as a taxpayer, I'd really like to see, seems like we're kind of throwing all these numbers around. I'd like to see these hard numbers of what was taken in with permits, what was electrical, plumbing, Richard's salary, his health and welfare, all that stuff kind of broken down, itemized. I would think it'd be pretty easy to put together. So we, seems to me like it's simple math, but we definitely need to start with the hard
No,
numbers.
we'll have finance here and.
Yeah, just,
Okay, so.
Ms. Fisher was asking about
Yeah,
this.
so if you want to look at it, it's right here. It's just the agenda, call to order, appointments. 1.1 is dispatch, 1.2 is building commissioner, zoning enforcement officer, position report, John Lumbrough, who is the guy from Holyoke. So it was
That
on,
wasn't very clear who he was.
but if you look up above that, it says regionalization dispatch services, John Lumber, parentheses, Holyoke treasurer, parentheses. So I guess if you hadn't read that line, you would know that he was the Holyoke treasurer, but it's like right above his name in the same.
I looked at it, I happened to look at it, it was in the office, as I looked at it, that's why I was here that night.
Yeah, and Jim, again, when we talk about things, we never know who should be here
No,
tonight.
you're right, you're right.
So it's, we try to, we're actually televising, obviously, and we're trying to, the agenda gets published, so if anybody wants to look at it, they can go on the website for the town, it's there.
Well, I'm hoping to put this joint meeting together to get the hard numbers down, and just like Ryan said, I think that's critical to making a real decision on this.
Again, Jim, this was a step forward with a conversation with Holyoke, and no decision has been made, and I truly appreciate everybody that came out here and gave their opinion.
Well, I really appreciate letting me have the time that I got, and, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? All right, take a motion to adjourn. Yes, so moved. Thank you.